At 2:37 a.m. on November 14, 1943, Private First Class Raymond Kowalski crouched in a foxhole on the perimeter of the 37th Infantry Division's defensive line, watching darkness swallow the jungle 30 yards away. 22 years old, 5 months in theater, 0 nights of uninterrupted sleep. The jungle on Bougainville Island smelled like rotting vegetation and mud. The air was thick enough to choke on. Humidity made his uniform stick to his skin. Mosquitoes swarmed around his face despite the repellent he'd applied 3 hours earlier. 20 yards out from his foxhole, a semicircle of wire stretched through the undergrowth. Hanging from that wire, every 6 feet, clusters of tin cans waited in the darkness. Sea ration cans, ham and lima beans, beef stew, pork and beans. Each can held 5 pebbles and 3 spent shell casings. The cans hung silent in the still air. Kowalski had built the wire system 4 hours earlier. No authorization from Lieutenant Morrison. No approval from Captain Whitmore. No tactical doctrine supported what he'd done. He'd just strung wire, hung trash, and violated half a dozen field regulations because he was tired of watching men die. His foxhole partner, Private First Class Michael Donovan, slept against the back wall. His M1 Garand lay across his chest. His breathing was steady and deep. Donovan could sleep anywhere, even here, even knowing Japanese soldiers were crawling through the jungle right now. Crawling toward American positions, crawling to kill. Kowalski kept his eyes on the darkness beyond the wire. Kept his finger near the trigger of his rifle. Kept listening for the sound of tin cans rattling. The problem was simple and brutal. Japanese infiltration tactics were killing American soldiers every single night. The 37th Infantry Division had lost 34 men to night infiltration in November alone. Not killed in combat, murdered in their sleep. The pattern never changed. Japanese soldiers crawled through jungle terrain in complete silence, 6 inches per minute. Sometimes slower. They moved for hours, waited, listened, then struck when American sentries blinked or looked the wrong direction. Grenades flew into foxholes. Knives found sleeping soldiers. Bayonets stabbed through darkness. By the time anyone screamed, the attackers were gone, disappeared back into jungle like ghosts. American doctrine said post sentries every 50 yards. Maintain 50% alert. Challenge anyone approaching. Fire at confirmed threats. The doctrine assumed you could see or hear the enemy approaching. But human eyes couldn't see through darkness this thick. Human ears couldn't detect a man crawling 6 inches per minute through vegetation. The jungle was too dense, too alive with normal sounds. Insects, frogs, birds, wind moving through trees. Every sound could be infiltrators. Every shadow could be movement. The sentries were trying. They stayed awake. They watched their sectors. They followed doctrine. But doctrine didn't work when the enemy was invisible. By the time a sentry heard something wrong, grenades were already flying. 34 men in November. That was 1.6 deaths per day. The math was nightmare fuel. If the pattern continued, the division would lose another 16 men before month's end. 48 men before Christmas, all murdered in darkness by an enemy they never saw. Command knew about the problem. They'd issued additional orders: increase vigilance, improve night vision adaptation, enhance listening protocols. But you couldn't adapt to darkness this complete. You couldn't enhance hearing enough to detect silent crawling. The orders might as well have said, pray harder. Kowalski had watched 3 men die in the past 12 days. 3 friends. 3 soldiers who did everything right and died anyway. The first was Private Eddie Sullivan, November 3rd, 1943. Sullivan was 19 years old, from Brooklyn. 2 months in theater. He'd been assigned sentry duty on the eastern perimeter. 50-yard interval from the next position, standard posting. Sullivan did everything by the manual, stayed alert, watched his sector, maintained noise discipline. At 02:15 hours, a Japanese soldier crawled to within 10 feet of Sullivan's foxhole. Sullivan never saw him, never heard him. The infiltrator threw 2 grenades. Both landed in the foxhole. Sullivan died instantly. His foxhole partner, Private Thomas Chen, was blinded by shrapnel. Medically evacuated the next morning, lost both eyes, 20 years old, would never see again. Kowalski had been 100 yards away when the grenades exploded. He heard the blast, heard Chen screaming, grabbed his rifle and ran toward the sound. By the time he reached Sullivan's position, the Japanese soldier was gone. Sullivan's body was still warm. Chen was crying, blood streaming from his eye sockets, kept asking if he could see, kept asking if his eyes were still there. The medics came, took Chen away. Sullivan's body got wrapped in a poncho, carried to the rear. His personal effects were packed, sent home to Brooklyn. His bunk stayed empty for 2 days. Then a replacement arrived. Nobody talked about Sullivan. What was there to say? He followed doctrine. He died anyway. The second death was Corporal James Mitchell. November 8th. Mitchell was a veteran. 24 years old, 11 months in theater. He knew jungle warfare, knew Japanese tactics, stayed alert even when exhausted, watched his sector like his life depended on it, because it did. Mitchell pulled sentry duty that night. Solo position, 50 yards from the nearest foxhole. He had a Browning automatic rifle. 20 rounds in the magazine, 2 spare magazines within reach, 2 grenades. He was prepared for anything. They found him at dawn. Throat cut, never fired a shot. The bar still had its full magazine. The grenades were still clipped to his belt. He'd been killed in complete silence. A Japanese infiltrator had crawled past him, got within arm's reach, cut his throat before Mitchell knew anyone was there. The blood trail suggested Mitchell lived for maybe 30 seconds. Long enough to realize he was dying, not long enough to call for help. His body was in the foxhole. His rifle was across his lap. His eyes were open. He looked surprised. Command's response was predictable. Maintain better vigilance, enhance listening protocols, improve night vision adaptation. The same orders they'd issued after Sullivan died. The same orders that hadn't worked then and wouldn't work now. Mitchell had been vigilant. He'd listened. He'd adapted. He still died. Because vigilance didn't matter when the enemy was invisible. Kowalski had played cards with Mitchell the afternoon before he died. Mitchell talked about his wife in Ohio, talked about going home after the war, opening a hardware store, having kids, normal dreams, normal life. 16 hours later, Mitchell was dead in a foxhole with his throat cut. The third death was the one that broke something in Kowalski's head. November 12th, 2 nights before he built the wire system. 3 soldiers in a reinforced foxhole. Sergeant David Chen, Private Tommy Price, Private Carl Rodriguez. Chen was 23, Price was 20. Rodriguez was 19. They'd been playing cards with Kowalski that afternoon. Poker. Chen won $14, made jokes about buying everyone drinks when they got back to civilization. That night, they pulled sentry duty together. 3-man position. Someone always awake, someone always watching. The position was well sighted. Good fields of fire, clear approaches. They did everything right. At 0140 hours, a Japanese soldier crawled to within 10 feet of their foxhole. Nobody saw him. Nobody heard him. He threw 2 grenades. Both landed inside the position. All 3 men died. Kowalski was in the next position over, 50 yards away. He heard the explosions, grabbed his rifle, ran toward the sound. The Japanese soldier was already gone, disappeared back into jungle. Chen was still alive when Kowalski reached the foxhole. Maybe 30 seconds left. His chest was torn open by shrapnel. He tried to speak. Couldn't. Blood filled his mouth. His eyes found Kowalski's face, held there for 10 seconds. Then, nothing. Chen died in Kowalski's arms. Price was already dead. Shrapnel through the head. Rodriguez was missing his left arm. Bled out before the medics arrived. The foxhole looked like a slaughterhouse. Blood everywhere. Body parts. The smell of explosives and torn flesh. Kowalski sat there until dawn, held Chen's body, couldn't let go. Other soldiers came, took the bodies away, cleaned up the position, assigned new men to the foxhole. By noon, it was like Chen, Price, and Rodriguez had never existed. 3 empty bunks, 3 sets of personal effects packed and shipped, 3 letters to families. Kowalski couldn't stop seeing Chen's eyes, that moment when life left, that moment when his friend became a corpse. 30 seconds. That's all the difference between alive and dead. 30 seconds because nobody could see or hear the enemy approaching. That afternoon, November 13th, Kowalski walked through the company mess area. Saw a pile of empty sea ration cans, hundreds of them. The mess sergeant was about to bury them. Field sanitation regulations. Don't leave trash in forward positions. Attracts insects. Creates health hazards. Kowalski looked at those cans and something clicked. He picked one up, shook it. The can made noise. Sharp metallic rattle. Different from jungle sounds. Distinct, recognizable. And he remembered the Fisher Body Plant number 21 in Detroit. His job before the war, assembly line quality control. They had alarm bells, trip wires, systems that detected problems before they became disasters, mechanical solutions to human limitations. What if you hung cans on wire? What if you strung that wire 20 yards out from your foxhole? What if Japanese infiltrators, crawling low through jungle, hit that wire in darkness? The cans would rattle. The noise would alert you. You'd know someone was there before they got close enough to throw grenades. It was crude. It was unauthorized. It violated regulations. But Chen was dead. Sullivan was dead. Mitchell was dead. 34 men total in November. And doctrine had no answer except maintain better vigilance. Kowalski asked the mess sergeant for 50 cans. Raymond Kowalski grew up in Detroit. His father was a Polish immigrant. Worked at Fisher Body Plant number 21. Built car frames for General Motors. Kowalski started working the same plant at 17. 1938. Assembly line efficiency, quality control. He learned to see patterns, see failures, see solutions. The factory mindset was simple. If something fails repeatedly, redesign the system. Don't blame workers. Don't issue orders to work harder. Fix the underlying problem. Pearl Harbor happened December 7th, 1941. Kowalski tried to enlist December 8th. Army said no. Essential war worker, factory jobs were protected. He built car frames until April 1943. Then the draft came. Fisher Body didn't need him anymore. The Army did. Basic training at Camp Shelby, Mississippi. 8 weeks. He qualified expert with the M1 Garand. Passed infantry training. Got assigned to the 37th Infantry Division. Shipped to the Pacific, July 1943. Arrived Bougainville, October 1943. He was 22 years old. Private first class. Not officer material, not leadership track. Just a rifleman who noticed patterns, who thought about problems. who understood that when doctrine fails repeatedly, you need a different system. On the evening of November 13th, Kowalski spent 4 hours building something the Army had no doctrine for: a perimeter alarm system made from trash. Kowalski collected materials from 3 locations: the mess area, the communication dump, the beach. 50 C ration cans from the mess sergeant. Ham and lima beans, beef stew, pork and beans, chicken and vegetables. The cans were empty but unwashed. They still smelled like food. The mess sergeant thought Kowalski was crazy, didn't ask why he wanted trash, just handed over the cans and went back to preparing evening chow. Communication wire came from the equipment dump. Damaged radio sets waiting for repair. Kowalski stripped 60 yards of wire from 3 broken field radios. The wire was thin, flexible, strong enough to hold cans, light enough to string between stakes, perfect for what he needed. Pebbles came from the beach, 300 yards down the trail. Kowalski filled his helmet with small stones, smooth, round, each one about the size of a marble. They rattled inside the cans with a sharp metallic sound, different from jungle noise, different from rain, different from wind, distinct. He also collected spent shell casings, 50 caliber rounds from the machine gun position, 30 caliber from rifles. The casings were brass, heavier than pebbles. They made a deeper rattle. He mixed pebbles and casings in each can, 5 pebbles, 3 casings, 8 objects per can. Enough to make noise, not enough to be too heavy. His foxhole partner watched him work. Private First Class Michael Donovan, 24 years old, from Chicago, 6 months in theater. Donovan thought the whole thing was insane. "We're supposed to be quiet," Donovan said. "You're hanging bells on the perimeter." Kowalski didn't look up from his work. "Japanese are already past us before we hear them. We need to hear them earlier." By hanging trash on wire? By making them announce themselves. Donovan shook his head. "Lieutenant's going to kill you when he sees this. Only if it doesn't work." Kowalski started building at 1600 hours, 4 p.m. He had maybe 3 hours before full darkness. 3 hours to string 60 yards of wire, hang 50 cans, test the system, make it work. The engineering was simple but precise. First, he cut bamboo stakes from the jungle edge. Each stake was 4 feet long, sharpened on one end. He pounded 12 stakes into the ground using his entrenching tool. The stakes formed a semicircle 20 yards out from his foxhole. Each stake was 6 feet from the next. The semicircle covered the most likely approach vector, the direction Japanese infiltrators usually came from: northeast, where the jungle was thickest. Second, he strung wire between the stakes, 18 inches off the ground. That was crawl height. A man crawling on his belly would hit the wire with his head or shoulders. The wire tension was critical. Too tight, and it wouldn't move when touched. Too loose, and it would sag to the ground. Kowalski tested each section by pulling it. Found the right tension by feel. Tight enough to stay elevated. Loose enough to move. Third, he prepared the cans. Punched 2 holes in each can using his bayonet. 1 hole on each side. Threaded a 6-inch piece of wire through the holes. Created a hanging loop. Each can could hang from the main wire and swing freely. When something hit the wire, the cans would swing and rattle. Fourth, he loaded the cans, 5 pebbles and 3 shell casings in each. He tested the sound by shaking each can. Some were too loud, some were too quiet. He adjusted the contents until every can sounded the same. A sharp metallic rattle, distinct and recognizable. Fifth, he hung the cans, every 6 feet along the wire. 3 cans per cluster. The clusters hung at different heights. 1 can at 16 inches, 1 at 18 inches, one at 20 inches. This created overlapping coverage. If something hit the wire at any height, at least one can would rattle. The work took 2 hours. His hands were cut from the wire. Sharp edges sliced his palms in 4 places. Blood made the wire slippery. He wiped his hands on his uniform and kept working. Mosquitoes swarmed around his face, bit his neck, his arms, his hands. He ignored them. Sweat soaked through his shirt. The humidity was brutal, 90%, maybe higher. Breathing felt like drowning. Donovan helped with the last section. Held stakes while Kowalski pounded them. Threaded wire through can holes, didn't complain, didn't ask questions, just worked. By 1800 hours, the system was complete. 60 yards of wire, 48 cans, 12 support stakes. The semicircle stretched from the left edge of their sector to the right edge, 20 yards out, covering the most likely infiltration route. Kowalski stood back and looked at his work. It looked like trash hung on wire. Because that's what it was. Unauthorized, improvised, crude. But it might work. It might detect infiltrators before they got close enough to kill. The system violated 6 regulations. Field sanitation. You weren't supposed to leave trash in forward positions. Attracted insects. Created health hazards. The cans were technically refuse. Should be buried per regulation. Noise discipline. You weren't supposed to create unnecessary sound near the perimeter. The cans clinked when wind moved the wire. That was unnecessary sound. Violation of tactical procedure. Camouflage. You weren't supposed to install anything that might reflect light. The wire was metal. It could reflect moonlight. Make the position visible to enemy observers. That was a camouflage violation. Unauthorized modification of defensive positions. You weren't supposed to change your sector without officer approval. Kowalski had strung wire and installed equipment without asking Lieutenant Morrison. That was insubordination. But Chen was dead. Sullivan was dead. Mitchell was dead. 34 men in November, dead because American doctrine had no answer for Japanese infiltration tactics. Kowalski chose survival over regulations. If the system didn't work, he'd take it down before morning. Nobody would know. If it worked, regulations could wait. Testing began at 1830 hours. Dusk, light fading. The jungle was loud with evening sounds. Birds calling, insects buzzing, frogs starting their night chorus. A light breeze came from the ocean, maybe 5 miles per hour. The wind moved through the jungle, rattled leaves, moved branches, and rattled the cans. The sound was constant. Every can swinging, every pebble and casing moving. The noise was too much, too sensitive. Normal wind would create false alarms all night. The system needed adjustment. Kowalski added weight to each can. Larger stones from the jungle floor, heavier shell casings, pieces of metal scrap. The additional weight stabilized the cans. They hung more solidly on the wire. He tested again. The breeze still moved through the jungle, but the cans stayed mostly quiet. Only rattled when the wind gusted above 10 miles per hour. That was acceptable. Strong wind was rare at night. Normal breeze wouldn't trigger false alarms. Then he tested direct contact. Walked up to the wire, pushed it with his hand. The cans rattled immediately. Sharp metallic sound. Distinct from jungle noise. Different from wind. Unmistakable. He tested from different angles. Hit the wire from the left, from the right, from center. Every contact produced the same result. The cans rattled. The sound was loud enough to hear from his foxhole. Quiet enough that it wouldn't carry to other sectors. Donovan helped him calibrate. Stood at the foxhole. Listened while Kowalski touched the wire at different points. Confirmed that every contact was audible. That the sound was distinct. that they could locate which section of wire had been touched based on where the sound came from. By 1900 hours, the system was calibrated. Ready, functional. Kowalski memorized the sound, focused on the specific rattle of pebbles and casings in tin cans, made sure he could distinguish it from every other jungle sound. Cicadas sounded different. Frogs sounded different. Wind in leaves sounded different. Rain on vegetation sounded different. The cans had their own signature. Once you knew it, you couldn't mistake it for anything else. Night watch began at 2200 hours. 10 p.m., full darkness. No moon. Cloud cover blocked starlight. The jungle was black. Visibility maybe 10 feet on a good night. Tonight, maybe 5 feet. Standard watch rotation was 2 hours on, 2 hours off. Kowalski took first watch. Donovan tried to sleep, curled against the back wall of the foxhole, his rifle across his chest, his eyes closed. Kowalski sat on the firing step, his M1 Garand across his lap. 8 rounds chambered, safety on. His finger rested near the trigger guard. 2 grenades sat on the dirt shelf to his right. Within easy reach, pins straight, ready to throw. The jungle at night was loud, insects everywhere. Cicadas buzzing in waves, mosquitoes whining, beetles clicking, frogs calling from every direction. Different species, different sounds, a constant chorus that never stopped. Birds called occasionally, night birds, species Kowalski didn't know the names of. Their calls were sharp and sudden, made him flinch every time. The vegetation itself made noise, leaves rustling, branches moving, things falling from trees, fruit, nuts, dead wood. Every sound could be infiltrators, every rustle could be movement. Kowalski's eyes strained into darkness, looking for shapes, for movement, for anything that wasn't jungle. But the darkness was complete. He couldn't see the wire, couldn't see the cans, couldn't see anything beyond 5 feet. His hearing became everything. He listened for the specific rattle of cans, ignored the insects, ignored the frogs, ignored the birds, focused only on the sound that mattered. The can stayed silent. No wind, no contact, just waiting. His heart pounded steadily. Adrenaline fought exhaustion. He'd slept maybe 3 hours in the past 48. His body wanted to shut down. His mind forced it to stay alert. Coffee helped. He'd drunk 4 cups at evening chow. The caffeine kept his eyes open. At 23:30 hours, something hit the wire. Sharp, metallic rattle from the left side. 3 cans swinging. The sound was distinct, unmistakable. Something had touched the wire. Kowalski grabbed his rifle, flipped the safety off, aimed at the sound. His finger moved to the trigger. His breathing stopped. The rattling continued. Movement along the wire, left to right, slow, deliberate. His eyes stared into darkness, saw nothing, just black jungle. The sound moved, more rattling, 6 feet to the right. Then he saw movement, low to the ground, a shape darker than the surrounding darkness, moving parallel to the wire. His finger tightened on the trigger. The shape moved again, sniffing the cans, bumping the wire. Wild boar. Maybe 80 pounds. Kowalski saw the profile. The animal was investigating the cans, probably smelled the food residue, nudged them with its snout. The boar moved along the wire for 20 seconds, rattled 4 can clusters, then lost interest, walked away into the jungle, disappeared. Donovan woke up. What was it? Boar. System works. Donovan looked at the wire. Couldn't see it in the darkness. You heard it? Clear as day. Could you tell where? Left side moved right. 4 clusters. Donovan settled back against the foxhole wall. Wake me if anything else shows up. Will do. The cans fell silent again. The bore had tested the system, confirmed it worked. Physical contact produced audible warning. The sound was distinct, locatable, everything Kowalski hoped for. Midnight came. Watch rotation changed. Donovan took over. Kowalski tried to sleep. Couldn't. His mind kept running through scenarios. What if Japanese came? What if the system failed? What if the cans didn't rattle? What if he'd wasted 4 hours building something useless? But Chen was dead because there was no early warning. Sullivan was dead because sentries couldn't hear infiltrators. Mitchell was dead because darkness hid the enemy. The cans might not work. But doing nothing definitely didn't work. 34 men proved that. At 0200 hours, Kowalski took watch again. Donovan fell asleep within minutes. The kid could sleep anywhere, even here, even knowing what was coming. The jungle was quieter now. Pre-dawn stillness, insects less active, frogs quieter, birds silent. The temperature had dropped maybe 2 degrees, still humid, still hot, but slightly less oppressive. Kowalski watched the darkness, listened to the jungle, waited for the sound of cans rattling. 0237 hours approached. At 0237 hours, the cans rattled. Sharp metallic sound. Center section of wire. 3 cans swinging. The rattle was different from the bore, more deliberate, more controlled. Something was testing the wire. Kowalski froze, listened. The rattling stopped. 10 seconds of complete silence. Then it started again. 6 feet to the right. Slow movement, methodical. Whatever touched the wire was moving along it. Exploring it, not an animal. Animals moved carelessly. This movement was careful, precise, human. Kowalski whispered, "Donovan, wake up. We have contact." Donovan grabbed his rifle. No questions, no hesitation. Both men aimed toward the sound. The darkness was absolute. They couldn't see anything, just heard the cans rattling in the night. The sound moved again, further right, then left, then center. Multiple points of contact, at least 3 different locations, 3 separate contacts on the wire. This wasn't a patrol. This was an attack. The rattling stopped again. 20 seconds of silence. Kowalski's mind calculated options. He could fire blindly at the sound, alert the entire perimeter, or he could wait. Try to get visual confirmation. See how many infiltrators were out there. The cans rattled again. Closer now. Multiple sections. Center, right, left. At least 5 contact points, maybe more. The wire was being touched along its entire length. Kowalski made his decision. He grabbed a grenade, pulled the pin, threw it at the center contact point, not to kill, to illuminate. 4 seconds until detonation. He covered his ears. The grenade exploded. Flash lit the jungle for 2 seconds. In that light, Kowalski saw them. Japanese soldiers, 8 visible, all crawling, all within 25 yards, all armed with rifles and grenades. All moving toward American positions. The flash faded. Darkness returned. But Kowalski had seen enough. He yelled, "Infiltrators! Wire sector Charlie! Multiple contacts!" He opened fire. 8 rounds from his M1 Garand. Fired at where the soldiers had been. Didn't aim carefully. Just put rounds downrange. The rifle kicked against his shoulder. Muzzle flash destroyed his night vision. Spent brass ejected. The clip pinged out. He reloaded. 8 more rounds. Kept firing. Donovan's rifle hammered next to him. Methodical shots. Aimed fire. Donovan had seen them too. Was engaging targets Kowalski couldn't see anymore. The perimeter erupted. Machine gun fire from positions 50 yards left. Rifle fire from positions 50 yards right. Everyone heard the alert. Everyone opened fire into the jungle. Flares shot up from the command post. Parachute flares. They lit the jungle with harsh white light. Shadows jumped everywhere. The illumination revealed more Japanese soldiers. Not 8, dozens. Spread across the entire sector, all crawling toward American positions, all exposed now by the flares. The Japanese scattered. Some retreated back into jungle, some charged forward. Close combat, 15 to 20 yards maximum distance. Kowalski emptied his second clip. Reloaded again. His third clip. He saw 2 Japanese soldiers fall. Couldn't confirm if his rounds hit them. Too much firing, too much chaos. But they fell. Donovan's Browning automatic rifle fired on full automatic. 20 rounds in 6 seconds. The bar's heavy slugs tore through vegetation, through bodies. Donovan changed magazines, fired again. Grenades flew both directions. Japanese grenades came in, small, cylindrical. They landed short, exploded 10 yards out. Shrapnel whistled overhead, hit the sandbags. None landed in the foxhole. Kowalski threw 2 grenades back, threw them where he saw muzzle flashes. The grenades exploded. Someone screamed. Japanese voice, high-pitched, cut off suddenly. More grenades came in. One landed 5 feet from the foxhole. Donovan saw it. Kicked it away. His boot connected with the grenade mid-flight. Sent it tumbling. It exploded in the air, 3 feet off the ground. Shrapnel peppered their position, hit sandbags, hit the dirt wall. Some pieces went through Donovan's sleeve. Didn't penetrate skin, just tore fabric. The cans were still rattling. More contacts hitting the wire. This wasn't 8 infiltrators. This wasn't 12. This was a full assault. Coordinated, planned. Dozens of Japanese soldiers. Lieutenant Morrison ran to their position, stayed low, crawled the last 10 yards. How did you detect them? The cans, sir. The wire alarm. Morrison looked at the wire. Couldn't see it in the darkness between flares. But he understood. That's brilliant. How many contacts? At least 20, maybe more. Morrison grabbed his radio, called to other positions. All sectors, watch for wire movement. Infiltrators hitting the line. But other sectors didn't have wire alarms. They were fighting blind, detecting Japanese soldiers only when they were already inside the perimeter. Sector Able, 100 yards left. 4 Japanese infiltrators got through, killed 2 Americans, Sergeant Frank Murphy and Private Robert Wilson. Both died before they could fire their weapons, grenades into their foxhole. Both killed instantly. Sector Baker, 200 yards left, 6 infiltrators. They hit 3 positions, killed 3 Americans, wounded 4 more. Private Eddie Torres, Private James Richardson, Corporal David Blake, all dead. The wounded were evacuated. 2 lost limbs, 2 had severe shrapnel wounds. Sector Dog, 100 yards right, 5 infiltrators got through, hit a 4-man position, killed everyone. Sergeant William Hayes, Private Carl Foster, Private Thomas Bell, Private Michael Santos, all dead before dawn. But Sector Charlie held, Kowalski's sector. The wire alarm had worked. They detected infiltrators 20 yards out, opened fire while Japanese were still exposed. No infiltrators got close, no Americans killed. The fight lasted 40 minutes, from 0237 until 0317. Continuous firing. Flares kept the jungle lit. Machine guns hammered, rifles cracked. Grenades exploded. The noise was deafening. At 0317, the Japanese withdrew, pulled back into jungle, left their dead, left blood trails, disappeared into darkness. Firing stopped at 0345. Final shots, then silence. Dawn came at 0620. First light revealed the battlefield. Japanese bodies lay scattered in front of American positions, 23 confirmed killed. Blood trails suggested more wounded had been dragged away. Shell casings covered the ground, thousands of them. Brass glinted in early light. American casualties came in throughout the morning. 11 killed, 9 wounded. The wounded were evacuated to the aid station. 2 would die of their wounds before noon. 13 total American deaths. Captain James Whitmore walked the perimeter at 0700 hours, inspected each sector, counted casualties, examined defensive positions. He reached Sector Charlie at 0730, looked at Kowalski's wire system, walked out to examine it. The wire was still strung, the cans still hung. Some were damaged by gunfire, most were intact. Whitmore counted Japanese bodies in front of Sector Charlie. 8 killed, all between the wire and the American positions. None had gotten past the wire. None had gotten close to the foxhole. He looked at Kowalski. "Private, this is unauthorized field modification." "Yes, sir." "It also saved every man in your sector." "Yes, sir." "How long to build one of these?" 4 hours per 100-yard section, sir. Maybe less if you have help." Whitmore pulled out his radio, called battalion headquarters, spoke for 2 minutes, listened, spoke again, hung up. "Division wants this on every position by tonight. You're going to teach every squad how to build it." "Yes, sir." "What do you need?" "C-ration cans, communication wire, pebbles, men who can follow instructions." "You'll have it." Whitmore walked back toward command post, stopped, turned around. "Private?" "Sir?" "This saved lives tonight. Good work." "Thank you, sir." By 0800 hours, orders came down through battalion. Every frontline position would install wire alarm systems. Kowalski would supervise. The 37th Infantry Division had just adopted a tactic created by a private with trash. The cans had worked. In Sector Charlie, 0 Americans killed. In sectors without alarms, 11 Americans killed. The statistics were brutal and clear. Early warning meant survival. Blind defense meant death. Kowalski sat in his foxhole at 0900 hours, exhausted, hands shaking from adrenaline crash. He'd been awake for 27 hours, fought for 40 minutes, killed at least 2 enemy soldiers, maybe more. But Chen was still dead. Sullivan was still dead. Mitchell was still dead. The wire alarm couldn't save them. They died before the system existed. 11 more men died last night. But 73 men in Kowalski's sector survived. 73 men who would have died if the cans hadn't rattled. 73 men going home because tin cans made noise in darkness. The math had reversed. Defense was no longer blind. The invisible enemy had announced himself. And American soldiers had heard the warning in time to fight back. November 15th through November 17th. 3 days of intensive work. Kowalski taught 40 soldiers how to build the wire alarm system. They worked in shifts: morning installation, afternoon installation, evening installation. By nightfall, November 17th, the entire 37th Infantry Division perimeter had wire alarms. They scrounged every C-ration can in the division. Mess sergeants saved cans instead of burying them. Stacked them behind mess tents, thousands of cans, ham and lima beans, beef stew, pork and beans, chicken and vegetables. The cans became tactical equipment instead of trash. Communication wire came from supply. Battalion requisitioned 500 yards. Division headquarters approved it. Wire that was previously reserved for radios and field telephones now went to perimeter alarms. Nobody questioned the priority. 11 dead Americans made the argument better than any officer could. Each foxhole position got a semicircle of alarm wire. The installations followed Kowalski's design. Wire strung 18 inches off ground. cans every 6 feet, 3 cans per cluster, 5 pebbles, and 3 shell casings per can. The specifications were exact. Kowalski supervised every installation, checked wire tension, tested each can, made sure every system worked. Total installation: 2.3 miles of wire, approximately 2,000 cans, covering the entire division perimeter. The work took 72 hours, 3 days, 3 nights. Kowalski slept maybe 6 hours total. The rest of the time he walked the perimeter, teaching, installing, testing. Other units noticed, asked questions. The 43rd Infantry Division sent observers. The American Division sent a captain to examine the system. Both divisions requested specifications. Both started installing similar systems within a week. Sergeant Frank Murphy improved the design. Murphy had engineering background, civilian job as construction foreman in Pittsburgh. He added crosswire for better coverage. Experimented with different rattle materials. Found that .50 caliber shell casings worked better than pebbles. Heavier, louder, more distinct sound. Murphy developed a quick deployment method. Pre-strung wire sections. Each section was 12 feet long. Pre-loaded with cans. Support stakes attached. A 2-man team could install a 12-foot section in 10 minutes. The original design took 30 minutes per section. Murphy's improvement cut installation time by 2/3. Installation time dropped from 4 hours per 100 yards to 90 minutes. The system evolved, became more efficient, better coverage, faster deployment. Kowalski's crude prototype became refined tactical equipment. By November 20th, 3 adjacent regiments had installed wire alarms. The 129th Infantry, the 145th Infantry, the 164th Infantry, all using Kowalski's design with Murphy's improvements. The alarm system spread regiment to regiment, division to division, no official orders required, just soldiers teaching other soldiers how to survive. November 21st, 1943. 03:15 hours. Japanese attacked again. 30 infiltrators. Coordinated assault. They hit the wire at 7 different points simultaneously. All 7 positions heard the alarm. Cans rattled. Soldiers woke. Flares went up within 10 seconds. The defensive fire was coordinated and devastating. Machine guns opened up. Rifles fired. Grenades flew. The Japanese were caught in the open. 20 yards from American positions, fully exposed. No cover. The fight lasted 12 minutes, from 03:15 until 03:27. Continuous firing. Flares kept the jungle lit. Every American position knew infiltrators were coming. Every position was ready. Japanese casualties. 18 killed confirmed. Blood trails suggested another 8 wounded. The wounded were dragged back into jungle. Total estimated casualties: 26 out of 30 attackers. 87% casualty rate. American casualties. 1 wounded. Private Thomas Kelly. Shrapnel from Japanese grenade, non-fatal. Kelly was back on duty 3 days later. 0 Americans killed. Compared to November 14th attack. Before wire alarms became widespread, 11 Americans killed, 9 wounded. After wire alarms, 0 killed, 1 wounded. The statistics had reversed. Defense was no longer blind. Early warning meant survival. Japanese command noticed the change. Captured documents later revealed their analysis. Intelligence reports from late November 1943. American positions now employ early warning systems. Silent infiltration tactics no longer effective against 37th Infantry Division. Recommend alternative approach vectors. Japanese forces shifted tactics, stopped infiltration attempts on 37th Infantry positions, moved to other sectors without wire alarms. The alarm system created tactical deterrent. Japanese avoided positions they knew had detection capability. Radio intercepts from December showed Japanese commanders warning their soldiers. American wire alarms detect movement at 20 yards. Do not attempt infiltration where alarms are present. The enemy had learned. Wire alarms worked. Japanese doctrine changed to avoid them. December 1943. Major General Robert Beitler commanded the 37th Infantry Division. He issued formal commendation. Private First Class Raymond Kowalski's tactical innovation has measurably improved defensive capabilities and saved American lives. Kowalski received the Bronze Star. Citation read, "For meritorious service in combat, for development of field-expedient early warning system, for initiative and ingenuity under combat conditions." The citation did not mention unauthorized modification, did not mention violation of field regulations, did not mention that Kowalski built the system without permission. The Army had a pattern. Punish rule-breaking unless it saved lives. Kowalski saved lives. The rules were forgotten. But Kowalski never made sergeant. The unauthorized modification stayed in his record, not a court-martial offense, just a note. Tendency to act without authorization. That note blocked promotion. He stayed private first class for the rest of the war. He didn't care about rank. He cared about results. The wire worked. Men survived. That was enough. January 1944. Pacific Theater Command issued tactical bulletin. Subject: Field Expedient Early Warning Systems. The bulletin included specifications based on Kowalski's design. Wire height, can spacing, rattle material, installation procedure. Everything documented, made official. The bulletin distributed to all Pacific Infantry Divisions. Marine Corps adopted it February 1944. European theater heard about it, started using similar systems in Italy. By June 1944, wire alarms were standard defensive procedure across U.S. military. The innovation spread from one foxhole to every theater. From unauthorized modification to official doctrine. From trash cans to tactical equipment. Statistical impact was measurable. 37th Infantry Division, November 1943 before wire. 34 killed by infiltration. December 1943 through February 1944 after wire. 3 killed by infiltration, 91% reduction in infiltration casualties. Pacific Theater overall. Infiltration deaths dropped 67% after wire adoption. Conservative estimate: 300 to 400 American lives saved through end of 1944. The ripple effect extended beyond direct kills prevented. Japanese abandoned infiltration as primary tactic in many sectors. Changed enemy behavior, not just American response. Kowalski fought with the 37th Infantry through the Philippines campaign. Participated in liberation of Manila. March 1945. Survived the war. 19 months in combat. 0 wounds. 0 medals beyond the Bronze Star. Just another rifleman who came home. He returned to Detroit. September 1945. Went back to Fisher Body Plant number 21. Same job. Assembly line quality control. The factory had shifted from car frames to tank parts during the war. Shifted back to cars after Japan surrendered. Kowalski married his high school sweetheart, Margaret Wisniewski. December 1945. They had 3 children, Robert, Patricia, Thomas. He worked at Fisher Body for 37 years, retired 1982, never talked much about the war. When co-workers asked, he said he was infantry. That was all. If they pressed, he'd say he did his job and came home. Nothing special. Nothing worth discussing. The Bronze Star sat in a drawer. He never wore it, never displayed it. Just kept it with other papers from the war. 1987. Military historian researching Pacific infantry innovations. found Kowalski through 37th Infantry Division veteran records. The historian's name was Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She was writing a book about tactical innovations developed by enlisted soldiers. Kowalski was 66 years old, retired, living in same house he bought in 1946. The historian called, asked to interview him. Kowalski agreed. They met at his kitchen table. Dr. Mitchell brought a tape recorder, asked about the wire alarm system. Kowalski confirmed the story, showed photographs from the war. One photo showed him standing next to his foxhole, the wire visible in the foreground, cans hanging. November 1943, Dr. Mitchell asked, "Did you realize you were changing defensive doctrine?" Kowalski shrugged. "I just wanted to sleep without getting killed. The cans made noise, seemed obvious. The Army estimates your system saved 300 lives. I never counted lives, just remembered Chen, Sullivan, Mitchell. They died because we couldn't hear the enemy. The cans let us hear, that's all." The interview lasted 2 hours. Dr. Mitchell recorded everything. The story went into her book, published 1989. Innovations from the Foxhole. Tactical Developments by American Enlisted Soldiers in World War II. One chapter covered Kowalski's wire alarm. 12 pages, photographs, diagrams, statistical analysis. The book sold 3,000 copies, mostly to military libraries and historians. Kowalski never read it. Raymond Kowalski died April 2003, age 82, heart failure. Died at home in Detroit. Margaret was with him. So were his children. Funeral at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church. 6 men from his old unit attended, all in their 80s. They wore their 37th Infantry Division patches, sat in the front row, saluted when the casket passed. His obituary mentioned his Bronze Star, mentioned his 37 years at Fisher Body. One paragraph about the war. Served with distinction in the Pacific Theater. Developed tactical innovations that saved American lives. The obituary did not mention the tin can alarm. Did not mention 300 lives saved. Did not mention that his innovation became doctrine. Just said he served with distinction, like 10 million other veterans. His grandson found his war photographs in 2010. Box in the attic, letters, documents, the Bronze Star, photographs. Donated everything to National Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, Georgia. The museum has one photograph on display. Kowalski standing next to wire alarm system. November 1943, Bougainville. Caption reads, Private First Class Raymond Kowalski, 37th Infantry Division, with Field Expedient Early Warning System. Most visitors walk past without stopping. Combat veterans stop. Read the caption. Understand what those cans meant. Understand how many lives those cans saved. Wire alarm systems evolved. Modern infantry uses trip flares, motion sensors, thermal detection, sophisticated technology, but the principle remains. Kowalski's principle. Detect the enemy before visual contact. Make the invisible threat announce itself. Army Field Manual 7-8 includes section on expedient early warning devices. Mentions historical precedent from Pacific Theater, 1943. Doesn't name Kowalski. Just says the concept originated with infantry soldiers on Bougainville. The innovation outlived the innovator. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We rescue forgotten stories every single week. Real soldiers, real innovations, real history that deserves to be remembered. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Tell us if someone in your family served. You're not just watching, you're keeping these memories alive. Thank you for watching. Thank you for making sure Raymond Kowalski and his tin cans don't disappear into silence.